Marcia, along with her family, underwent a significant change, swapping the bustling scenes of São Paulo for a small village in the interior of the state. The village, a frequent retreat for them due to the presence of their maternal grandmother, promised the serenity and peaceful environment they longed for. The narrative unfolds, revealing that despite the serene beauty of their new home, adaptation proved to be challenging. Marcia, in particular, faced the anguish of job hunting, a concern that became the persistent shadow in her journey. The account is a sincere sharing of an experience that deeply touched Marcia, an experience she now shares with the world to emphasize that, regardless of the location, everyone has the right to develop their talents and pursue their deepest dreams. After the beloved grandmother's passing, Marcia's family found themselves entrusted with a unique inheritance. A beautiful house, situated on a modest property in the countryside, revealed itself as an unexpected blessing amid the mourning that surrounded them. The humble-looking structure carried ancient tales woven into its worn walls. Located in a tranquil locality, away from the hustle of the metropolis, the house became a sanctuary, surrounded by lush landscapes. A garden emanating the fragrance of fruit trees and various flowers, an inheritance that provided the family with unforgettable memories and the unique opportunity to preserve that home for future generations. Even in the sadness of mourning, the house became a refuge that held not only memories but also the promise of a future intertwined with the past. The family's story, marked by this unexpected inheritance, began to unfold in chapters that transcended time and life itself. They decided to explore the possibilities offered by the property left by their grandmother. That place provided the opportunity to live closer to their culture and roots. The vast and tumultuous world of the city made way for the serenity of the countryside. A certain feeling enveloped them, as if the presence of their grandmother was guiding them in the right direction. It was inevitable that they ended up choosing this path, guided by a choice that seemed to be more than just theirs, but also a legacy to be honored. Getting a job at that diner near the family's house, located almost 4 kilometers away, turned out to be extraordinary for Marcia and her family. Although the salary didn't meet ideal expectations, gratitude was immense for the opportunity to contribute to the household expenses. A true blessing that manifested in everyday circumstances, weaving a new layer of meaning into the family's journey in the countryside. The work environment proved to be welcoming, offering a sense of security to everyone who entered. Despite the demanded effort and late departure hours, Marcia never failed to give her best. Even when the extra wages were no more than convenient, she didn't complain. Tirelessly, she sought to accumulate knowledge, not only to contribute to her family, but also to fully embrace the experience in that setting. Each workday became an opportunity to learn, to surpass expectations, and to absorb the richness of experiences the environment provided. Committed to her purpose, Marcia saw beyond the daily challenges, turning each obstacle into an opportunity for personal and family growth. At the diner, it didn't take long for Marcia to become friends with some of the other employees. They were welcoming and quickly included her in their circle. During lunch breaks, they would sit together, sharing stories and gossiping about the small town, weaving bonds and enjoying pleasant moments that would become an integral part of their daily journeys. During a lively conversation, one of my co-workers mentioned the legendary figure known as Alma Pidonha. In this local legend, it was described as an old woman who appeared on that road at night seeking alms. However, the truly chilling intrigue of this narrative was that Pidonha was not an ordinary person, but a supernatural entity that roams that road. This legend has always been familiar among the inhabitants of this region. She had never heard of that legend, and the mere idea of someone suffering on the road where she used to spend lonely nights sent shivers down her spine. Initially, she thought it was just another superstition, but something in the way her friend talked about Pidonha made her doubt. Could there be some truth to that story? Soon she would discover that the road held secrets much more frightening than she could have ever imagined. With all honesty, she acknowledged being someone who felt fear regarding paranormal phenomena. A certain apprehension always accompanied her when the subject was brought up, which is why she preferred not to make it a topic of conversation. After a few days, she had practically forgotten the story, leaving it behind. And, truth be told, she no longer wanted to be involved with that subject. One night during her shift at the diner, everything unfolded unexpectedly. With a sudden surge in customers, she found herself having to stay longer. The clock seemed to have a will of its own, refusing to move forward as they served the last customers and prepared to close. Looking at the clock, she realized she had missed the last bus home. Night had fallen, and the road lay empty with a dim light from a lamppost illuminating the path. Her work shift had ended some time ago, but at that moment, there was nothing more she could do. Her friends had already boarded the bus to the other neighborhood, leaving her alone. She felt a sense of desperation and worry. Stranded 4 kilometers away from home, she faced a seemingly endless walk on the deserted road, shrouded in the silence of the night. She was 4 kilometers away from her home, and the walk stretched before her as something endless. The road lay deserted, with the night concealing all its mysteries. There was no other option but to face the journey back, even though she was aware it would be a frightening endeavor. The surroundings were silent, the darkness imposing itself. Her footsteps echoed in the night, leaving her alone with the fears the road instilled. Thus began a terrifying experience that would stay etched in her memory. By setting foot on that road, she struggled to resist the urge to look toward the entrance of the property. The passage was surrounded by old and lush trees, adding a somber quantity to the darkness of the night. Her heart pounded with fear, and her legs were trembling, caught in the tension that permeated the surroundings. Upon reaching the entrance of the location, she noticed something unusual. There was a hunched figure facing away from the road, resting under the shade of a large tree, an old mango tree. A shiver ran down her spine, chilling her entirely, while a sense of bewilderment surrounded her. It was hard to believe that this strange figure was there. Surely something was not right. The sight was terrifying, shrouded in the absence of streetlight. The specter seemed cloaked in tattered rags, concealing its face from the observer. However, its eyes emitted a glow that contrasted with the darkness, causing great astonishment. In that moment, she felt as if she might faint at the macabre scene unfolding before her eyes. The horror was so intense that she began to feel shortness of breath, dizziness, and nausea. Her feet seemed numb, and she was on the verge of a panic attack. In a desperate plea, she begged God to deliver her from that calamity, whatever its origin. While her eyes remained fixed on the asphalt, she heard the sound of leaves on the ground, as if even they were in motion. She continued walking, praying for some vehicle to appear. She was willing to board any, even if the driver were a stranger. Several minutes passed, which felt like an eternity to her, but she managed to overcome that cursed stretch. Finally, she was still far from home, trembling with fear. She looked back, but nothing stirred in the darkness. Panic began to take hold of her, and her eyes filled with tears. About 15 minutes later, a pickup truck passed by. The driver was a man who owned a corn plantation near where she lived. He offered her a ride, curious to know why she was crying, if someone had upset her. Almost speechless, she accepted the act of kindness and was dropped off at home. Her parents were concerned to see her reaction. After a few minutes, she told them what had happened, and despite the disbelief on their faces, the neighbor who gave her a ride said he had heard stories like that before on those roads. Some people mocked her at work, but she knew how she felt. She quit her job. She couldn't fully explain what that experience was, but it left her deeply shaken. And even today, when she remembers, her eyes fill with tears.
Jose, his wife, and their daughter lived in the countryside of São Paulo, but their parents' roots traced back to Paraná. This connection had always sparked the desire to live there. When the opportunity to purchase a small property in Sarandai arose, they didn't hesitate. With preparations in place, they hit the road with their belongings, Every kilometer revealed plantations and agricultural areas. Upon reaching the new locality, a surprise awaited them. The dirt roads and isolation were more prominent than they had imagined. They stayed at a neighbor's house while completing the construction of a small wooden house on the edge of the forest on their property. With the construction finished, gratitude enveloped them as they embarked on this new chapter with the purchase of their property. The journey in that town was filled with experiences for Jose, his wife and daughter. They had the privilege of building relationships with their neighbors, enjoying the natural beauty of the rural area, and discovering new things at every turn. The residents warmly welcomed them, integrating them as part of the village. He remembers the long hours spent preparing the soil for planting and enhancing the property, an educational process of adapting to life in that region, so different from what they were accustomed to. As the days went by, they felt increasingly connected to the place, solidifying the sense of belonging to nature and the homestead. With dedication, they became part of the land, placing all their hopes in this new chapter. Conversations around the campfire, idea exchanges and starry nights marked the days of Jose, his wife, and daughter months after their arrival in the surroundings. Gradually, their friendship with the local residents strengthened, with frequent invitations to meals, gatherings around the campfire, and narratives from Mr. Bento, one of the oldest in the region, about hidden treasures. Local legends spoke of buried gold since the time of the colonists, arousing curiosity and apprehension. Some of the elders warned them about negative energies, suggesting that they might not be prepared to face them. Nevertheless, the temptation to find gold led to contemplation. It's crucial to remember that hidden treasures don't always bring fortune. Sometimes they bring problems in unimaginable ways. One night, Jose had a disturbing dream that caught him off guard. In his vision, he saw a familiar road, a fence, and a tree. At the base of the tree, on the roadside bank, something was buried, resembling a box. He wondered about its contents and, eager, began to dig. The shock was immense upon opening it. It wasn't a box, but a coffin. In the vision, he saw himself there, with hands dirty from the soil, gazing at a skeleton and a pile of gold coins and shiny chains. The sensation was so realistic that when he woke up, his heart almost leapt out of his chest. He shared everything with his wife that morning, leaving her as terrified as he was. It seemed like the past was conveying something more than a simple dream. Sylvia, Jose's wife, felt frightened when he shared his dream. She had never involved herself in dangerous or supernatural matters and tried to persuade him not to meddle with it, aware of the potential consequences for his adventures and ambitions. Despite Sylvia's concerns, Jose was drawn to unraveling such a mystery. His stubbornness compelled him, even though he was aware of the fear it instilled in his wife. It was as if something true was calling to him, fueling his desire to uncover the buried gold. In the days following the dream, Sylvia, Jose's wife, began to experience growing discomfort. Every time she ventured into the forest in search of firewood, she felt the disturbing sensation of being watched. This feeling robbed her of peace of mind to the point where she feared being alone at home. Jose, distressed to see Sylvia like this, felt powerless to help her. Behind it all, there was a dark and malevolent energy that affected the tranquility of their home. On a morning driven by cursed greed, Jose decided to go to the location he had seen in the dream. He put an old shovel in the car and hit the road, as the place was nearby. Adrenaline surged through his body as he approached, winding through dirt roads between farms and native woods, finally reaching the spot. It was exactly as in the dream, the tree, the wooden fence, everything identical. As he took the shovel out of the car, preparing to dig, a sudden chill swept over his body. A horrible sensation that something malevolent was present there, accompanied by nausea and a sense of dread. An immense fear overcame him suddenly. Lacking the courage to proceed, fear prevailed. José put the shovel back in the car and hurried home, unaware that something evil was accompanying him. As night fell, as usual, José and his family gathered for dinner and shared the day's events on the farm. Soon, they went to sleep. During the night, José had a terrifying, indescribable dream where something hovered near the house, pursued him, and tried to harm him. Waking up in panic, his wife woke up too. As José recounted the dream to his wife, they heard a mysterious noise coming from the roof. The sound was loud, as if something heavy was stepping and trying to bring down the roof. Paralyzed, not knowing what to do, they cried out to God for help, as they were sure something bad was about to happen. José's entire house seemed to shake, as if something imposing were outside. The sound of strong footsteps and a breath coming from an unknown place haunted them. Afraid that the roof would collapse, the family was terrified. Suddenly, an unprecedented sound filled the air, the flapping of giant wings. The entire house began to tremble even more, as if something colossal were flying above the roof. The last sound they heard was the flapping of the wings of this mysterious being, leaving them utterly terrified. After a brief moment of hesitation, José gathered his strength and went outside. As he looked at the distant hill, he spotted something unusual. A creature resembling a giant bat flying in the distance, above the trees, gliding over the treetops. The moonlight reflections illuminated the figure swiftly moving through the air, disappearing in a matter of moments behind the neighboring mountains. José felt powerless in the face of this situation, his mind filled with confusion as he tried to comprehend what was before his eyes. The haunting experience tormented him for a long time, leaving him with a sense of tremor and insecurity that persisted indefinitely. José vividly recalls the moment they decided to share their experience with the local residents. An elderly lady, Donna Maria, listened attentively as they recounted what they had faced that night. The wrinkles in her eyes indicated that something in the story deeply resonated with her, as if it harked back to ancient times. When they mentioned the sinister creature, Donna Maria slowly nodded her head, as if something in her memory was awakened at that moment. She then began to share stories she had heard during her childhood, tales told by her own father, one of the old inhabitants. He spoke of a macabre creature that haunted the region, causing distress to those who lived there. However, according to Donna Maria, no one talked about it anymore. It seemed to have been forgotten, left as distant flashes of memories. Her words brought unease, as if the experience lived by José and his family had deeper roots than they had imagined. It would be eerie if those ancient legends and their terrible encounter were somehow connected. After all we went through, we decided to return to our hometown. Choosing to sell that property was challenging but necessary. We learned a lot from that experience, but we felt the need to leave. We sought a safer environment, a place where we knew what to expect. However, dealing with the fear and uncertainties that surrounded us was not easy. We were eager to forget everything and start anew, but undoubtedly, returning home brought us relief and a sense of peace we had longed for.